So that was 1975 when Margaret Hamilton, who obviously played the Wicked Witch of the West, was on Mr. Rogers. And she went on Mr. Rogers to show, because she was sad that kids were scared. She didn't think it was scarier than she had originally had thought it was going to be. And Mr. Rogers, of course, always was about helping kids understand the world better, right? And so she went on there to show them it was just a costume, and she was just a regular lady. And then after this part that I showed you, they talk about her grandkids and all of these things, and you realize she's just a very nice lady, and she was playing pretend. And so today's talk was, I was already chose the antidote of fear, and then some things happened. You did a great segue for me, Nancy, and she didn't even know. Love that. We're on the same page. But the definition of fear, according to our friends at Merriam-Webster, they're the people who decide what things mean, right? They said, fear is an unpleasant, often strong emotion caused by anticipation or awareness of danger. It also can mean anxious concern, a reason for alarm. An unpleasant or often strong emotion caused by anticipation or awareness of danger. So I guess part of that is there actually danger? Right? From the video we learned that we don't need to be afraid of the Wicked Witch of the West because we know she's actually a very nice grandma lady, right? And she was just playing a part, wearing a costume. And you might hear in New Thought circles, or maybe even other places, fear, it's a great little thing, is false evidence appearing real. Fear is false evidence appearing real. But it can seem really, really real sometimes, right? And so back when I was in college the first time, I was a theater major, and the local Navy base was putting on doing a thing to help trying to dissuade people from drinking and driving. And so they did the thing where they took some crashed cars and they put them together, and they got actors to play the people in the cars, and then they got them in there, and then they pulled the tarp off, and then the EMTs come and they get you out, and they do this whole thing to help make it more real how troublesome it is. So myself and some of the other folks from our theater department were enrolled to be the people in the cars with the fake gore and all of the stuff, and got cut out of a car with the jars of life. This is pretty cool. I got to be cut out of a car with the jars of life, and I didn't get hurt. How cool is that, right? I got to drive in an ambulance with the sirens on and enjoy it. So anyway, so my friend Tom and I were playing a couple who was in this car that got all smashed in this accident, and the whole storyline, well, Tom died, I didn't, but we were both alive at the beginning, and there was this whole, wait, where are you going? We were doing this whole thing, and it was all improvised about, what's happening, where, all of this stuff that was happening, and the EMTs were talking to us, and all of that, and it was so real. And I knew it was pretend. Obviously, I knew it was pretend, right? And of course, there was part of me that knew it was, but it felt so amazingly real in so many ways. And I tell you that story because sometimes we're in a situation and it feels amazingly real, and if we can just remember, well, maybe it's not. Maybe we don't need to be afraid, because the fear of losing my boyfriend or whoever he was in the story was so real, even though, it was my friend Tom from the theater department who, obviously, once they took his not alive body out of the thing, he was going to be fine too. So anyway, it's just an interesting, little trick that we can play on our brains, right? And so what we fear what we don't understand. Like the Wicked Witch of the West. We can be afraid of her because we don't know that she's a grandma. She's a lady playing a part. But we don't, and because we don't like to be afraid, and we don't like to be confused, we like to feel like we understand what's going on around us. There seems to be two main ways to go when we don't understand something, right? So one of them is to seek information. If we don't understand something, we seek information. Like when my friend Terry and I have recently moved to Missouri to go to seminary, and we were out walking one of the trails at Unity Village, and both of us being Northwestern girls, of course, are not familiar with the trees and the animals and everything of Missouri, and we see this ginormous snake. I'm not kidding. It was ginormous. It was curled up, and it was like this big around, right? It was big and black and fat, and we were like, whoa, what's that? Right? And so we went and found out. We went and asked somebody who knew, who was from there. And we found out that black snakes in Missouri are big, fat snakes, and they eat rodents and things like that. So they're actually really good things to have around, and they're not poisonous, but we didn't know, right? So we found out. So we went from being cautious, because we didn't know, to finding out information. So when we saw them from then on, we could be like, well, we're not going to get like too close, but we know that we don't really need to be concerned about like running. So we did that. But the other response, the other common response to being afraid or confused or not knowing is to make the other thing wrong or bad. And this is where we come into some problems. Because when we make someone or something wrong or bad, then we put them on the outside of the circle. And we make them, and there's no need for compassion. And there's no need to try to connect. And then they can be the scapegoat for all the wrong and bad things. If you've been paying attention to the news, you know. And if you can breathe through the opportunity to see maybe that this could be underlying some of the things that we're hearing from lots of different places and lots of different perspectives, that often fear or misunderstanding are at the root of many things. Because, there's nothing to fear when we know that, in truth, that we're okay. No one else can harm that if we know in truth we're okay. If we know that we're safe, if we know that we're loved. So, if we're coming from fear and we've put someone outside and we don't need to have compassion or understanding, we have all this false evidence, what happens next? So I believe that the antidote, there's several antidotes to fear. And I'm talking about fear today, obviously, because it's Halloween, and we do lots of fun things and dress up as scary things, and it's kind of a time in many cultures and traditions to, talk about those who've passed and all of those things, and sometimes doing scary things. It's all part of what's happening this time of year, and so it's kind of just a fun time. But it's really real. Like, fear gets in the way of so much things. Like, we can use fear to say, well, I can't, try out for the swim team because I'm afraid of what if I don't get on. But, well, what if you do? If you don't try out, you already didn't make it. So, anyway, the antidote to fear is understanding. Because when we understand, then we can see another perspective. The antidote to fear is compassion. Realizing whatever's happening here, you may have a different perspective than I do, but that doesn't change in the essence of who we are as people. The antidote to fear is gratitude and appreciation. You know, I have well, he was a teenager at the time, who said, you can't say the word bubbles and be angry at the same time. You can go ahead and try it. Bubbles. I mean, you just can't do it, right? Like, it's very, like, they don't go together, right? And so I would say that a feeling of gratitude cannot exist in the same place as a feeling of fear. And that's pretty exciting, right? Because that, gosh, you set me up so good, Nancy. I just love it. Because when I believe, there's all this stuff going on, and it's good to be aware of what's happening in our world, and we get to choose what energy ripples we want to put out into the world, and the consciousness that we want to create in the world. And so things need to happen, and we get to create a different kind of environment. We get to create an environment of welcoming, of compassion, of connection, of understanding. And how do we start doing that? Well, I have a tool. Who's surprised? We have a very helpful cat here with us today. So, this little card is called the Season of Gratitude. And so I invite you, and you can even start beforehand, but November starts this coming week. And so on the back, there is a list, one a day, and I invite you to send a letter of gratitude, a postcard, an email. Letters are really nice. I mean, however you want to do it, a gratitude to a person a day. And now you don't have to do the ones that are on here. This is a suggested list. This is make it work for you, because not everybody has all the people that are in those categories. But it's a good starter list. So you can't be like, well, I don't know who to send one to. Here you go, okay? And some friends of mine at Unity of Ames started this, probably 10 years ago. And so this is, conveniently refrigerator-sized little thing for you to send a little note of gratitude every day for the first 3 weeks of November. That takes, because Thanksgiving is November 22nd, so it's like getting in that, like, let's make Thanksgiving and gratitude like really stick, right? It's not just a day, it's every day. And so I believe that looking at this and just saying, okay, who could I send a note to every day? And allowing that energy to, because here's the thing, you can't like start writing some notes, of gratitude and then like not have that affect you and how you are feeling about the world. I mean, it's sort of like trying to say bubbles when you're angry. It just doesn't work. And you can still probably maybe feel some concern or angst or things about that bubble, what's going in the news, but at least you took a little bit of time each day to be in that place of gratitude. And when people receive those letters that you sent out, it'll make a difference for them too. And while I think it's important to send some things out, if every now and then you feel like you want to write a letter of gratitude to someone who's passed on or whose address you don't know, you can do that too. You can do that too. Because fear and walls and disconnection is not going to heal our world. It's not going to do it. We have to do it with love, with understanding, with compassion, with gratitude, with connection. I don't know why some of the things that we see happen, or what were the motivations of people who've done some of the things that we see happen in the news are. I don't know. And sometimes we can never really know. But another thing Mr. Rogers always said is that his mom told him to look for the helpers when he sees things in the news. And that's something that we can do and that we can all do. You know, I will not let bullying, I will not let hate crimes, I will not let people who speak in unkind ways about one group or another be the final answer. I will make love, connected, understanding, peace, gratitude be the final answer. That's all we can do. It's a very, very powerful thing, not only for our own life, but for all the people around us. And because it's Halloween, let's remember joy, because, you know, joy is, it's hard to be joyful and fearful at the same time too, right? So there's lots of antidotes to the idea of fear or to fear. And we get to choose to which ones are the ones that we live. That's what it all comes down to, right? Yeah. Okay. So, try out your letters. No one's going to keep track, but I'd love to hear, if you do it after a while, you're like, this is really amazing. I mean, that would be awesome to hear, right? Wouldn't you all like to hear stories from each other about how, so yeah. So there you go. I have a whole stack of these, so if you know someone else who might want one, or I'm going to attempt to post every day on our Facebook page the theme of the day, so you can check it out there too. So, well, we see scary things walking our streets the next couple days for Halloween. Know that the joy is the real reason we do all of that, right? All right.